All right, we'll get started. Kenyatta says that I'm always prompt to start and very prompt with ending. So I like to keep that standard going here into 2021. And would like to just welcome my guest, Meghan Montgomery. She's the president of Little Dog Marketing. I think this is the first time we've actually been on some virtual. I've actually seen you, Meghan, and I'm really excited to have you on to talk about marketing, some of the things that you are doing with SJB Group and on behalf of DOTD's DBE support services. But before you get started, I would love for you to introduce yourself properly. And I know you can tell those who have joined us tonight a little nuggets or background about yourself. Yeah, I would love for you to just share with us your background and let us know a little bit about what you're working on and what brought you into marketing.
Absolutely. So I started my business about 4 years ago, and it actually was sparked by working. I used to work at SJB Group, and I was the marketing director there. And I through Jackie and Kenyatta, I got to work with some of the DBE firms, and I just fell in love with helping small businesses and kind of giving them the marketing tools that they can then just go out and sell their business. I told Kenyatta this story the other day, and it almost brought tears to my eyes. At one of the DBE events I had put together a capability statement for this guy. We came up with a plan for how he could package it in these folders and all of that. And he didn't know who I was. And he shows up at this DBE event, and I'm just helping them out with it. And he shows up with this folder, and it was a Meet the Prime event. So he shows up with this folder, and he's like grinning ear to ear. He's so proud of it. He couldn't wait to show it off. And the whole time he's showing me, like he's like showing it off to me. And he is just so excited and so proud of it. And my heart exploded. It was just like the coolest thing for me to be able to give someone who is obviously very passionate about what they do, but to give them these tools to make them feel so proud and to be able to, show themselves off in the best way possible. I just was like, oh, so I kind of fell in love with it. And that's what sparked me wanting to go out on my own, because I wanted to help other small businesses. And I do a lot of branding work. So I kind of get started with people on their brand and their logo and who they are and really fleshing out their identity. And then, what tools from the marketing toolkit do we need to use that will make sense for each individual business? And then, of course, I come up with plans for them to, on how to use those tools, how to best market it. And if they need ongoing support, I'm always there. So that's a little bit about me and my background and how I kind of got involved in this. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here and to help out and give you guys my input as needed.
Yes, no, thank you. And I think it's great because you've actually started on the side of the DBE and have been working with small business from the start, which is definitely very popular when you're talking to small businesses who are either trying to get certified or already certified and are just trying to break in, as oftentimes I say, into government contracting and doing business with
Right.
DOTD or, just the government in general. And so tonight, what we want to talk about is ways you can market your business to the government, common mistakes businesses make when marketing. We actually had some individuals on from the city of Baton Rouge a few weeks ago. And for anyone that was on that webinar, you saw how even the smallest mistakes basically would cause your proposal to get thrown out, like a decimal point in the wrong spot, too many zeros accidentally placed in the wrong column. And so definitely mistakes can be a detriment to proposals, particularly when you are submitting them in the government space. Talking about strategies and tips for DBEs and minority businesses to use marketing to land contracts and opportunities, and then the DOTD DBE supportive services and how they can help you get started. And as Meghan already mentioned, ways that they can assist in ensure that you are well prepared and have the best foot forward when you're actually approaching those in the government space. And so I just wanted to kind of start here by just considering some of the best practices of marketing to the government. The first slide I have here is just considering value to government agencies. So within the government, you want to understand what is the actual service that you are giving to the government, and then who within the government is requiring your products or services. And so if you've attended these webinars, we've talked about the gambit from working with DOTD, working inside of municipalities like the city of Baton Rouge, working from the federal level, you name it. How can your company help the government meet its goals, objectives, and mission? One thing that I often hear, particularly from those on these webinars and DBEs, is, how do I know if the government or if the agency department that I'm targeting, if I can help them, and how do I package my services so that it clearly states the goals, objectives, and mission of what I'm offering in a way that's communicated well. And then also thinking about like what parts of your company's products or services have appealed to previous customers. And so if you are a small business owner and you have products and services that you're offering, what has appealed to others? What have you sold? If it was, in construction, if you do cement, like what has your focus been in the past? And then when you're trying to read RFPs, how can you correlate that to your actual product and services? And then is there a niche that you can target your products or services around? Something that Denise and Chris talked about last week was that they would source for certain things, like small things, like fences, right? And so they would kind of go in their database and they would look for contractors who, that's what they did. That's all they did was supply fences, or it was a big part of their business. And so they kind of knew several that met this criteria. Sometimes they could do a sole source, particularly if it was underneath a certain threshold. And so understanding if you also offer like a niche service where someone like, oh, we know someone who does this and the contract size hasn't required for a full RFP to be put out. And so when you're considering your value to government agencies, definitely these are some of the questions you want to ask yourself. Second thing I have here is heighten your web presence. And when we think about this part of your company's website, right, should be strictly focused on the government and should include something that Megan talked about earlier, like your capability statement, your corporate identity information. Meg, I would love for you to talk about what do you feel is most of value if a business comes to you and say, okay, we have this website, but it's like 20 years old, or we don't actually have a website at all, but we have maybe a Facebook page. When it comes to web presence, how important do you feel this is for small businesses? And what are some of the key things they can do to like freshen up their web presence, or what should they be including?
Yeah, absolutely. I always say, and it's kind of a harsh reality in the world we live in, but if you're not on the internet, then you don't exist. People go to Google. That's where everyone starts. If you're looking for any kind of information, you start with Google and you search and you see who pops up. So one, if you don't have a website, I mean, Facebook is good. That ends up popping up on Google as well. But if you don't have a web presence at all, it's a lot harder to find you. And I mean, I think that's probably pretty common sense now, but getting a website can be intimidating to some businesses. It's really not that big of a deal. If you go actually on the DBE website, the Louisiana DBE I think it's .com. Mm-hmm. If you go to that website, there's actually a webinar that I put on regarding website development. That's a good place to start if you're looking to deep
Definitely.
dive. Some of my kind of key pointers when I'm doing a website is, don't assume that somebody's going to dig through your pages to try and find the information most relevant to them. Savitra, I love what you said when you were like, if you have a website, have like a government section. really when you define your target markets, and it may be more than one, you kind of want, when they land on your page, you want them to know exactly where to go. You want to get people to the right information as fast as possible, because we don't have the attention span. It's just the part of our culture and our world now, is that, if you're not getting hit over the head with it, then you move along. So, definitely make sure on maybe your homepage or your landing page that you have government contracts, or if you do any residential or industrial or whatever it is, make sure you kind of spell those things out right off the bat. And then another part is the search engine optimization factor. That just helps you. What search engine optimization is you use certain keywords, and within the copy of your website, there's some back end things that you can do for that. And that's how you increase your I guess, prevalence on Google. So if you want to be on that first page of a Google search, you need to make sure you incorporate these certain search engine terms. So that's another thing for you to get found, for sure, because it's easy to do. You just, incorporate those into your content, and there's not a silver bullet for it. It's not going to happen immediately, but if you keep using content with those search terms, you should be good.
Yeah, and I think people miss that part too, because I think people are like, oh, I have a website up there, and they don't think about, oh, wait, I can optimize my website. What does that mean, right?
Yes, yeah, and I see that a lot where people have had a web development company that sets it up, and it may look really great, but functionality wise on the back end, if people aren't looking at it, then how great is it? Because they can't find it. So it is important to keep that in mind, and to make that a priority when you're developing one, or when you're if you're kind of doing a revamp of your website.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's like key. And I know early on, the internet continuously changes, but to your earlier point, if you're not online, then you don't exist. And so just to reiterate what Meghan has said, like having a website, not just having something that's online, because now I feel like everyone has something online, but are people seeing it? When I type in Baton Rouge or New Orleans companies that pour cement, or that do fencing, or that provide whatever services it is that you provide, you can type in those keywords. And if you're optimizing those keywords on your website, then your company is more likely to actually come up in my search. And so that is something that is really important. And I don't even have like optimization on the slide. So I'm super happy that Meghan brought that up, because it is very important in this age of information overload, when there's so much content and so much information online, and you're trying to search deep and wide to try to find specifically what you're looking for.
Yes.
So something else that you mentioned earlier on, and my third point here, is creating capability statements and having your information correctly, your past performance. I know you've probably seen a lot of capability statements, Meghan. What have you seen? What makes a good capability statement, and what makes a capability statement like, okay, we have to sit down and redo this?
I definitely think I see a lot of times there's maybe some inconsistencies. So, and that can go across the board. So you see some people that may have they may not have a logo or any branding elements at all, or they have different ones. So their website will have one thing, and then the capability, like a draft of the capability statement, will have something else. And you're just kind of like, whoa, guys, this is very disconnected. So I would definitely say, keep things consistent, don't keep it too wordy, because it's basically a brochure. It's something that somebody's going to glance at. If you have paragraphs on paragraphs of information, they are not going to read it. Again, it goes back to, we do not have the attention span. So bullet points work really well. keeping consistent branding, like I said, and it doesn't have to be some, fully fleshed out branding style guide or anything like that. That's super great and it's amazing, but not everybody has that. But if you stick with using the same handful of fonts across the board, the same colors across the board, stick with a logo or a certain number of versions of your logo, just that way, that all lends to, you're as consistent as you can be, lends to your credibility. Mm-hmm. So it makes you look a lot more legitimate. And you don't even, people don't even realize it, but when you see these disjointed pieces in different parts, in the back of your mind, in the back of someone's mind, they're going, is this even the same company? Like, what is going on? So that's all something very important. It's all important stuff to consider. Another thing would be, which Savitri mentioned earlier, is really considering your target market and think like them. Like, take an imaginary walk in their shoes. Like, what kind of language do they use? What kind, what is most important to them? What are their pain points? How can you make their life easier? And getting those points across in something like this, I think is important too. Because it's just, absolutely, like I said, getting them the information as fast as possible. So
yes. And even when you think about, you said it, I was thinking it. And that was, is this the same company? Like, sometimes I'll look at a capability statement, because you have to think about this. You're not only marketing yourself to the government, you may also be marketing yourself to primes and to other partners. And they're looking at your website, they're looking at your capability statement. And so when you said that, is this the same company? That's literally the thought that was in my mind, because sometimes I see capability statements and you look at one, you're like, okay, that's interesting. They have, we need this, this would be an add value, or for a subcontract. And then you have your website on the capability statement. So then I go to your website and maybe you may have updated your capability statement recently, but your website doesn't necessarily match your capability statement.
Yeah. And I would say, because I do branding and graphic design and all of that stuff, but I would say if you already have a website that you put money into and you're happy with it, then use that as as the template for branding the capability statement. Don't try and switch it up and then go back. Just, you want it to be consistent.
Absolutely.
So I would stick with that.
Yes. And I know we're like overemphasizing capability statement, but it literally is sometimes like your first just intro to another company or like the government. And that's what they hold on, like that's their takeaway. So having a good one is important. And so even going beyond branding, and we think about like doing your homework and utilizing marketing. Marketing is basically the like icing on the cake, like your brand, everything else is like the icing on the cake. But something that I want to talk about here is about doing your homework and trying to target the entire government, not trying to target everyone, and focusing in on certain agencies that buy what you sell. I know that we talk a lot about just different areas of government, and sometimes people can be like so all over the place. But I always emphasize if you're looking to work with the DOTD, you're focusing on the DOTD, what they are offering, what's coming down the pipeline, building relationships. And it could be just as simple as like just doing your homework and research to what you really want to sell in the government. And if you're already selling it, how you utilize marketing, other tactics to actually like break through. Work with others who have experience. And so something that I just noted when we're talking about capability statements is teaming up with other subcontractors and going with them and leveraging their past performance relationships to start building your own past performance. And so this is also really important when we think about like leveraging other entities and collaborating with them, and tying that into like relationships being key. So one thing that I did before in like a junior teaming situation, it was myself as a DBE and then another company business that was a DBE. We created like a junior partnership, And we actually had somewhat of like a joint capability statement. And so we were combining our past performances and their past performances and trying to essentially create like this very co-branded type of experience via the proposal in which we were responding to. And I think that when people think about like going after government opportunities, they miss the idea of like building relationships and how important relationships are. And these well documented, well crafted marketing materials can actually give you a little bit of leverage to keep a conversation going a little bit longer, to keep someone engaged longer, to keep them to keep your capability statement on the top of the pile, the capability statements that they received. And so definitely when we think about taking some of these key objectives related to government contracting, from relationships to marketing, it's a combination of bringing all these things together, which causes winning proposals to happen and actually closing these key opportunities. And so I'm sure that DBEs, when DBEs come and small businesses come into your office, Meghan, they have like a lot of different questions about not only what they're working on, but how to get prepared and just at the stage that they are at. And so I know that you're meeting them like kind of where they are. But what would you say are some of like the key objectives for the small businesses that come in to your office and meet with you from a marketing perspective?
A lot of times it's kind of getting your brand together, but also you know, I like to say every outside touch that your business has with the world should have a marketing spin on it, from the person answering the phone to your website to your sign out front. But part of that also is your submittals and your proposals, and part of that could be the teams that you're approaching primes with. You want to make sure they're just as reputable and good at their job as you are. And then another thing is, and you may touch on this eventually, but is really hitting, and you mentioned it earlier, actually, really hitting home how important it is to meticulously review any submittals that you get out. Be crazy picky about it. If you know somebody, a friend or a family that's crazy particular about things like that, have them review it. Because you'll want, like I said before, fonts and colors, those things can be consistent as much as you can modify some of those forms. But keeping those things consistent, and also things like the phone numbers. So if you use parentheses sometimes and dashes sometimes and this and that, like just go with one across the board. Pay attention to those kind of things. And then, just edit, be crazy granular about everything, because they do notice. I remember meeting with DOTD. We were reviewing a submittal that we didn't win on, but I was kind of new to the process. So I went and met with DOTD to get some information. And the person we met with just was like, this is inconsistent, this is that, blah, blah, blah. So they notice it, and it is important to them. So it could be easy to be like, oh, I mean, that's not that big of a deal, but it is. And it's a reflection of your business and your brand and the quality of work you do. So definitely dot those I's and cross those T's.
Yes. And that was even what we were talking about on our last webinar, like the editing process, and also ensuring that in like the numbers, just like what you're plugging in makes sense. One of the small businesses who could have easily landed what would have been almost like $1 million contract, literally just didn't have certain decimal points in the right place. And so they got kicked out immediately. They were essentially disqualified. And so we think about like those things in the editing process. And even one of the things that I know, they like going beyond marketing, we think about can the government like find you? And so particularly in this slide, we're going back to the idea that all government employees, what they're doing is they're doing their search online, going back to Google, and many contracting officers research companies. But when we think about what they see when they get there, to the point of what's on your website, is it consistent? Are the I's dotted, T's crossed, parentheses the same across the page? It's about, and people think, oh my, this is very, very nitpicky. But the thing is, when you're when you're competing against so many businesses, it's like, what are the little things that could just disqualify you in a person's mind from not being capable of doing the work, right? And so I think like those are the things where people are like, oh, well, this person was like meticulously just flawless with how they presented their business and how they communicated versus this other business.
And if you also think about the people who are actually reviewing the submittals, think sometimes they can have 75 submittals, 75 teams going after this work. They are looking for reasons to throw them away because they don't have to read through them, So if you don't want to give them a reason, so you do have to be very on top of it. So you don't get, whether it's an actual disqualification or not, in their mind, they can be like, well, they spelled this word wrong, so they're out.
Right.
That can happen. I mean, that certainly can happen.
Absolutely. And then something else we talk about, like going beyond marketing and just being informed and prepared, is just not responding to RFPs, but also responding to requests for information. Sometimes, and particularly if you are on any of the emails that SJB sends out and DOTD sends out, sometimes you'll see RFPs and sometimes you will see requests for information or sources sought. And that's something also that Chris and Vigneet talked about in their on their webinar as well. And so don't just always wait for the RFP, because there is opportunity to like create relationships, build relationships prior to. Something that you talked about earlier, Megan, was, and we'll go right into like how everyone on this call can utilize the DOTD DBE support services for help. But you talked about pre-COVID, at least, there was opportunity to meet the primes. Now we're trying to create this more virtual world. And I think that people have to even be more creative about how they market to primes and the government, particularly when you can no longer really go to these like fairs and you can't meet them one-on-one. Is there any tips that you would give to DBEs and small businesses around how they can market themselves in this like new world that we're in, where we aren't having events again yet?
Right. Again, the internet's a great tool. Social media, if you can staying in front of people, so you can request people to follow your pages. And if you're putting out meaningful, valuable content, I think that's a great way to stay in front of people. Are you going to get a bunch of phone calls from a Facebook post? No. But do they see your name as they're scrolling Facebook? Yes. So that's a good tool to kind of, it's a backseat way to, stay in front of people, but also just check in with your contacts or make the introduction, call, see if you don't know somebody at a prime or somewhere that you want to get involved with, see who in your network does, and have them kind of make an introduction. I think a lot of times also, like if you can really present your value, like if you're getting your capability statement together, if you can present your value, maybe do a webinar or something like that to kind of, I like to provide valuable information rather than saying, I'm great, look at me, I'm great. I call it show, don't tell, so finding ways to show people your value and, why the next time an RFP comes out with concrete work or whatever it is, they'll pick up the phone and call you. But yeah, just staying in touch with people, just regular networking, check in on people. it's a stressful time for everybody. I think some people might like getting a phone call from someone because we're all a little isolated right now, and it'd be nice to hear from a human being.
Yes, Kiana, I know he's probably in the audience somewhere. He answers every call that someone puts through, every email. And so, yeah, I think that people would be pleasantly surprised how many people will actually respond, and they don't mind actually having conversations and hearing about what your business is, particularly if it's coming from a place of learning, right? So you're not necessarily asking them for something, but you're trying to learn so that you can achieve ultimately what your goals are. And so I definitely think when you think about the approach, your approach to primes, your approach to potential partners, your approach to government officials who are in charge of awarding and trying to get ahead of RFP coming out just to build relationships, it's about really building those relationships and approaching them not to ask from anything for them except to like gain knowledge and insight from the wealth of information that they have. And so definitely consider your approach. And I think that you will find that people are willing to help you. Now, when it comes to DB supportive services, and we talk about this, we probably in our webinars with, if you are interested in getting your capability statements reviewed, if you're interested in getting your website just reviewed and feedback on it, email Kenyatta and he'll put you in touch. Well, Kenyatta's telling us that he will put everyone in touch, but Meghan, it's you oftentimes behind this work. And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, because we constantly remind all of those who are participants on webinars that they too can get feedback and help with their marketing materials. So actually having the individual who is kind of spearheading and leading that effort on is great. And so if I was a DBE small business who came in, what are the parameters around the services that are offered, and what is the extent of like what I can get for free underneath these supportive services?
Well, a lot of the part that I help out with is the marketing component. So if you need help getting your capability statement together, or if you have one and you want someone to review it and look at it, that's one of the things we do. I do graphic design, like I mentioned. So oftentimes I'll put together, I'll put it in like a brochure format. We figure out what format works best for you. A lot of times I'll do trifolds. It's up to you. And again, I consider any branding elements you already have in place. If you don't have any, I figure it out. I make it up. And hopefully it sets the direction for you to go. If you don't have a website or anything for me to reference before, hopefully what I put together for the capability statement can kind of lead that direction. If you don't have any branding stuff, you can talk to us about how do we get started with that? What elements do we need? What do we need to consider? What are the questions we need to ask before we can get one? And another thing, of course, is the website. If you have a website, we can do like a website audit and go through and look at it. If we need to do some keyword research for those search engine terms, we can do that, and then work out ways to incorporate that into the content of your web pages. And then also give you some tips on how to incorporate that in the back end of your website. So that way you have more likelihood of showing up on Google searches. And I mean, if any kind of marketing and branding questions, really, we're here for you for sure. And I don't know if Kenyatta is a host or not, but he can definitely speak to some of the other, obviously our website's an amazing resource. We put every webinar out on there. So definitely go on there. It's free content. It's available 24/7. It's recordings of our past webinars. It's a great resource. And yeah, I mean, they do everything though. Jackie and Kenyatta can also help with like proposal development. If you have project management questions, human resource questions, safety questions, any of those things, that's what we're here for as a team, to kind of all put our heads together and help you help you guys. Like I said, I'm little dog marketing. We help you run with the big dogs.
Right. I like that. I like that slogan.
That's the idea behind it. Yeah.
Yes. I brought Kenyatta up in case he wanted to add any other thoughts around supportive services outside of marketing, as Megan mentioned. So hi, Kenyatta. How are you? Yeah, I was like, wait, I was expecting to see, y'all were expecting to see Kenyatta's face tonight, but I brought him up in case he had some good additional supportive services to add that you all have access to.
Well, you know, y'all pretty much have done a great job of explaining it to them. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, you can.
Just really, and I had put it in the chat just in case anyone else was, you know, paying attention to that. When you say what's free, pretty much everything except for the cost of the domain to start the website. We can't cover that cost, but any other capacity when it comes to the marketing, like Ms. Megan was saying earlier, we've helped from the start of whether they have something in place, we can make revisions to it, or we can start from scratch. They can send us some ideas that they want. Ms. Megan does a great job of taking that vision, business cards, capability statements, marketing trifold. You know, we try to keep their costs limited. So we create everything, save it on a file for the, you know, business cards, marketing capability statements. And when we create it, we'll provide them the first 50 to 75 copies and then send everything to them on a flash drive. And then obviously they bring it to any printing service from there. But also we also make sure that they everything's unified. So, you know, some of them have wanted some folders. Ms. Megan has did a great job of creating labels, and we able to provide that to them so then they can get whatever color scheme that they want and put those clear labels on there. So that goes into the story that she said with the gentleman who was extremely excited about his leave behind materials, because he had everything that he needed to feel confident in what he can offer them in addition to already doing great work. So there really isn't a cap on what we can do. Is just obviously with the domain, we can't pay for that cost, but we can make, Ms. Megan, we can schedule, again, group settings, or we can do a lot of one-on-one to where she can really dive in specifically, because we also understand that some individuals don't really want to give all their own creative vision away to everybody else, right? So they like to keep it individualized. So we'll work that way. But man, just like I tell everybody, man, don't hesitate to call us. Anything that you need, just give us a call. We'll tell you. And most of the time we have other resource agencies that's in our ecosystem that can fill in that gap as well. So that's what I would have to add, man. Just give us a call. We're going to get it done for you.
Yeah, I know that you have worked closely with Ada over at Southern University. And I know they support through the SBA small businesses as well. So definitely, in addition to the services that are provided under DBE supportive services, because there is like a network of sorts, there's definitely the ability to access even additional resources. And I tell people all the time that even for me, when I started landing my first government contracts, it was because I was going in and I was talking to people like Kenyatta, kind of like understanding and learning how to maneuver through this space and how to connect the dots. That really began to help me, how to get certified. And then that person introduced me to another person, like, oh, maybe you should talk to this person. I talked to that person. Next thing you know, I was having a conversation with John Matthews, and now we got Hudson and should have certified. And then, I had opportunity that way. And so it definitely is this combination domino effect of support once you get started, and you just have to definitely start somewhere.
Hey, I want to add one other thing real quick if I can.
Yes, please.
Now, I put it in the chat, but I just wanted to make sure I said it also. The other really key component of all of this as well, because Ms. Megan is going to do a phenomenal job of the marketing. Ms. Savitra is going to do a great job of helping us with these type of webinars to get you prepared for it, as well as as you're going to see in the upcoming future, we've already started doing it, getting you all with a better understanding of what's going on in the local marketplaces across our region. But the biggest thing is when you get this marketing material, you want to make sure that you begin doing your business development way before things begin getting advertised. You know, before, whether it's a proposal or whether it's a project, you know, we can assist you in getting in front of the right individuals so you can take this marketing information and really utilize it. Because if you wait to start marketing yourself once everything is being advertised or being bidded on, you're too far behind. You know, you really want to start doing this, if you can, no less than 30 to 45 days prior to things being advertised, because these bigger companies are already developing their team. You know, just to give an example of us, when we knew we was going to be going after this contract again, we had, all of us that y'all are seeing on here today, we started talking about this months in advance of how we wanted to collaborate together for this particular, for supportive services. So you want to make sure that you put yourself in a position to be at the top of that list when they're deciding on who they want to have on their team. And that's from a professional service aspect or construction aspect. Either way, you want to begin doing that. So I just want to kind of plug that in a little bit, you know, as we get closer to you know, I'm pretty sure the question and answer period of this.
Yep, that's coming up next. And with that, one of the questions was going back to, Kenyatta, what you said about like the free prints. And so I think I heard you correctly say that you provide the first 75, but then you put the capability statement on a jump drive. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do it that way. And then obviously they can bring it to any of their printing services. And then if they need any revisions made in the future, we can do that as well. And then obviously we'll just send the file to them and they can save it to that flash drive again.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Megan.
Sorry, I was just gonna say another thing that we can also do. I've done this before. Is if I design the capability statements or brochures or whatever it is, I try to get it. I do it in like a format. A lot of times I'll use Publisher because that's part of the business tools through Microsoft. So DBEs can actually edit the content themselves. So if your phone number changes or your address changes, you're not having to wait for somebody to do it. So we do have that ability too. If you're comfortable, if a DBE firm is comfortable making those changes, we can give you the editable format for you. That way you're in control.
Absolutely. Another question is for you, Megan. Do people hire you outside of the DBE role for larger marketing jobs? So outside of what you offer for free, can people hire you for larger jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, my services range anywhere from initial branding. I do a lot of content writing for websites or you know, any marketing materials, anything like that. Social media guidance. I help people with that and get kind of a game plan together for that. Sometimes I even run the social media. And it just takes a lot of planning and all that. But yeah, absolutely.
And another question that I have here is related to, we mentioned something around like HR or understanding like capacity, capabilities and capacity. Kenyatta, can you speak to that? Like how can a person come to you and talk about their capacity and understand that they have the capacity to go after a project, essentially?
Yeah, that's all part of it, man. When we get together, what I try to do is get as much information as I can, which that's part of it, Ms. Savitra, is getting that. So when Ms. Megan gets it, she can just let her creative wheel spin. So all part of that is us sitting down, and you know, obviously right now due to COVID, we doing everything virtually. So I can set up a Zoom meeting. We can pull up examples because I have a ton of examples that we've created already for previous firms to give them some different ideas. We have the one-page capability statement. We find that when we do the marketing trifold, that pretty much helps for firms who, you know, more like in that janitorial field, something where they need to have photos to go along with it. Because on most capability statements, you may not find more than just a snapshot of the owner or somebody or the logo. The trifolds give more of a brochure feel, and we can do both, you know, or we can do one or the other. But yeah, we'll be able to sit down with them, help them determine the capacity of what they have, and help make sure that that marketing tool is beneficial to whom they are and what they want. Because you don't want to just waste that opportunity when just like it has to be unified in the marketing scheme, it also has to make sense when you're leaving it with someone behind, because that's your story until you talk to them again. So yeah, we can do all of that, man. Help them make sure to help them determine capacity and everything. You know, we have those tools in place and the individuals in place to do so.
Absolutely. And Kevin, I see that you dropped your email here, and Kenyatta has provided his email above, which is kenyatta.sparks@sjbgroup.com. And I'll drop that again. One question is, can people reach you? Meghan, can people reach you via Kenyatta as well? Or what's the best way to reach the marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. Kenyatta can send my info along. My email, I can just give it, it's Meghan, Meghan, at littledogmarketing.biz, biz.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely shoot me email if you have questions or anything like that. Just let me know.
Another question, will we be provided with contact information for our presenters? Yes, we always send out a follow-up email. And so we include information in that email, and we also include a recorded copy of the presentation. And Kevin will drop Meghan's email as well in the chat. But yes, we do follow up. As long as you register for the webinar, we send it out to everyone who's registered. And even in the future, if you have a webinar that you want to attend, but you have a scheduling conflict, still register, because we are sending out the video to everyone who's registered. So that's important to note to everyone. I think we might have one more question here. Go ahead, Kenyatta.
I was going to say real quick, I put in my in the chat also our website, which is www.louisianadbe.com, and that we also populate all the recordings on there as well. So Miss Avitra and her team does a great job putting together the recording and the decks, emailed to you all who's in attendance, but we also keep a webinar pool of all of these on that site. And if you subscribe to it, you'll be notified each time that we populate with great information as we put it on there. So I think that would be, we highly recommend you do that as well. I apologize, Avitra. I just wanted to slide that in real quick.
Yeah, no, thank you. Another question to Meghan, do you think a capability statement should stay one page, or is two okay? Are photos a must or just nice to have? What do you think of a link on the statement that sends the prospective customer to a document that details services and results, or even a video they can see? What are your thoughts around some of these questions?
Yeah, so I guess the first part of it, let me go back to it.
It's a few questions in one.
One page or two. I would probably stick to, if you think of a piece of paper, if you do double-sided, that's front and back, that's 2 pages. I think that's fine. Again, this isn't a proposal, so you don't have to fully explain everything. It's just kind of the highlights. So definitely, keeping it short and sweet, I think is beneficial to you. Let me go back to the questions. Pictures. Yeah, pictures are nice. I guess it kind of depends on what you do. If you can find, definitely, when it comes to pictures though, make sure it's a high quality photo. You don't want it to be grainy, because that, again, that's a reflection on you and your business and your brand. So make sure it's a very high quality picture, or pictures. Or if you find some graphics or something that you want to use, there's a lot of great stock sites that have graphics or images that are just stock photography that you can use. If you reach out to us and I'm helping you, I can get them for you. So yeah, just let me know. And then let's see, what else?
Links. So links to other.
Okay. So I do, a lot of times these are in like a paper format. So you're not going to want to have a link that, has a bunch of messy stuff on it if you're sending them to like a YouTube channel or whatever it is. I do think it's good though to to provide information. So if you do have a website, or if you do have Facebook or whatever it is, you know, to put your at Little Dog Marketing or whatever, that's fine. But I wouldn't muddy a printed thing, anything printed, up with like a long link that somebody has to type in, because they're not going to do it. If it is in like a PDF format, yeah, you can link that. You can link the text actually, and they can click on it and go. I would probably stick to maybe your website though on that, and then you can direct them from the website to, if you have a cool video on your homepage or whatever it is, you can do it that way.
Perfect. And so I think that's all the questions we have with the last 5 minutes that we have left here this evening. Any final thoughts, Megan, you'd like to leave our participants with here and those who will be watching later?
Goodness, I guess, you know, it was kind of a running theme throughout was, you know, being consistent. That's a big take. Something I'd love for you guys to take away from this is, in your brand or in your materials or whatever, being consistent throughout is so important to kind of reinforcing your brand and the perspective that your clients or the primes, the perspective that they have of you. You might not think it's a big deal, but it really is.
Agreed. Any final words on your side, Kenyatta? Any parting comments?
Oh man, like I always say, you know, we're a one-stop shop. You just need to give us a call. Don't hesitate. Anything. I don't really go down the list, because in addition to the marketing, we help fill in all the other gaps. As you can see, we got a great team. You know, I love having the opportunity of working with these two great young women. You know, they add a lot of value to what we do. As y'all can see, like Ms. Avitra had said earlier, y'all get a face with the name now when we talk about all this marketing stuff, right? You get to do all my bragging, now y'all get to see. But you know, at the end of the day, man, my thing is, man, utilize it. All individuals that's in attendance, especially DBE certified, it's, you know, there is free services to help you grow a successful and sustainable business. As you can see, all three of us here are passionate about it. We got some other team members. Ms. Avitra named some of the other agencies that we work with directly, that are like-minded, you know, with SBA, LSBC at Southern, LED, we can go down the list with those, PTAC. So we're here to help you all win. And I'm just happy that we have this platform to do so.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Oh, they weren't gonna let us forget. Let me share this in the chat. 1 second.
Hey man, yep. I can't let, now look now. Y'all take it. Look, I should have kept y'all behind the camera, man. It's too late now, though. It's too late now.
But again, just note that we will be sharing all this information after the webinar. We are pretty good about just sending out things within a day or two. And so we'll send out the video, the deck, and any other accompanying materials that we talked about along the way. But really appreciate all of you for joining us tonight. Next webinar, we will go back over to having a guest on that is more regional. To Kenyatta's comment earlier, we're bringing on procurement officers and those in the contracting space who are even making decisions in different cities that are in our region. We had Baton Rouge last webinar, and upcoming we will have Shreveport, Monroe, Lake Charles. So we'll be moving around a little bit. We'll also be coming back to provide more webinars like this and more trainings. So we definitely hope everyone stays in touch. And if you have any comments and follow-up questions, make sure that you email us. Other than that, I hope everyone has a great night. And staying true to Kenyatta and me being prompt, I want to give you guys back the rest of your time this evening. And so be on the lookout for our email. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.